The mirror flatters no one. It faithfully reflects what stands before it. Carl Jung. When someone gazes into a mirror, the first thing they notice is their own reflection. But is that truly all there is to see? What if the thing we most fear isn't the world around us, but our own selves? Perhaps that's why so many glance away quickly, as if dreading the confrontation with something they aren't ready to face. The image the mirror returns is impartial, yet our emotional response to it reveals much more. The face we display to the world each day might not be our true one. It could be a disguise, and if worn long enough, this disguise might merge with the identity we've come to accept as real. So the inevitable question arises: are you ready to look beyond the surface, the reflection that doesn't lie? Unlike spoken words or societal norms, the mirror holds no intention to please. It simply reflects back what is present before it, with relentless accuracy. Because of this, we often prefer to steal a quick glance rather than engage in deeper inspection, not of the mirror itself, but of what it symbolizes, the possibility of seeing ourselves as we truly are. This inner conflict between appearance and essence was seen by Jung as one of the core challenges of human consciousness. Between our authentic self and the image we project, a chasm emerges. That gap begins forming early, as we learn which behaviors are acceptable and which must be suppressed. Gradually, we craft a socially acceptable version of ourselves, a mirror image that fits external expectations. But the more we drift away from our inner truth, the weaker our sense of identity becomes. We begin to exist through our reflection rather than our essence. It is precisely here that the persona is born, the psychological mask we shape for survival. Though it seems to shield us, it silently demands a toll. The persona, the mask we create to survive. From early childhood, we begin to absorb an unspoken lesson. Being accepted comes at a price. We suppress instincts, filter our words, and fine-tune our expressions. Unconsciously, we start to piece together a public version of ourselves. According to Carl Jung, this construct is known as the persona. The persona functions as a social shield. It's the identity we present to the world, embodying the roles that others expect of us. The dutiful child, the model employee, the loyal friend. Each of these roles is a carefully sculpted facade tailored to meet external expectations. The persona is not who someone truly is, but who he and others believe he is. Carl Jung. The term derives from ancient Greek theater, where performers wore masks to portray various characters. The metaphor is exact. Just like actors, we wear masks to secure our place on life's stage. The issue isn't in donning the persona. Jung maintained that it's essential for social interaction and adaptation. The danger lies in mistaking it for our real identity. When the mask becomes fixed, we begin losing touch with our core self. We start believing we are the role, not the being behind it. This confusion may seem subtle, but it runs deep. The more we identify with the persona, the further we stray from our psychological center. Imbalance takes root, and when life inevitably demands that we remove the mask, what remains can be terrifying. When the mask falls, the collapse of the persona. The persona is built as a form of defense, but it also becomes a trap. The longer we remain attached to this constructed identity, the more blurred the boundary becomes between the mask and our authentic self. Then, one day, something shifts. A personal crisis, a significant loss, a deep emotional rupture, and suddenly the mask begins to crack. When the persona crumbles, it brings a sense of confusion. Who am I without this role? The executive who lost his position, the father rejected by his children, the artist who can no longer create. When the foundation of our identity collapses, emptiness often takes its place. Carl Jung described this stage as both dangerous and transformative. There is nothing more pitiful than someone who lives solely for their persona, never encountering the self. Carl Jung. In the midst of such collapse, three paths may unfold. The first is the path of negative restoration, where the person clings to the past, desperately trying to return to who they were while denying the internal transformation. The second is the loss of the persona altogether, when the individual becomes socially unmoored, plunging into isolation or psychological suffering. But there is also a third way, conscious restoration. In this path, the individual rebuilds their persona in alignment with their true nature. This renewed mask does not betray the self. It becomes a channel to express it sincerely. This path, however, requires bravery, because as the persona falls apart, it exposes something deeper, the presence of a repressed force, a hidden aspect of the psyche. The shadow, what we hide from ourselves. If the persona embodies what we show to the world, the shadow symbolizes what we conceal even from our own awareness. It consists of everything we once learned we shouldn't be: impulses, emotions, desires, and memories that were silenced, denied, or disowned. Carl Jung recognized the shadow as one of the most potent forces within the psyche. The shadow is a living part of the personality and seeks to be acknowledged and heard. Carl Jung, it is not inherently evil. Rather, it represents the parts of ourselves that didn't fit within the boundaries of the persona and were thus banished from conscious thought. For instance, a lively child frequently scolded for talking too much may suppress their natural expressiveness and adopt a quiet persona. But that original energy doesn't disappear. It becomes the shadow. Trouble arises when the shadow remains ignored. The more polished and rigid the persona becomes, the more volatile and menacing the shadow grows. It may emerge in outbursts of anger, emotional meltdowns, reckless behavior, or harsh projections onto others. Someone who suppresses anger might turn passive-aggressive. A person who feigns flawless purity could secretly harbor destructive fantasies. The shadow weaves itself into our behavior and even into our dreams, yearning to be acknowledged. Yet, when we face it and bring it into the light, the shadow changes form. It holds within it hidden abilities, neglected gifts, and profound truths. Acknowledging the shadow is not a sign of weakness, but of courage. It is the willingness to be human, whole, imperfect, and real. And this inner reconciliation is a vital step in a deeper and sacred process. The journey of individuation, the path back to the authentic self. Individuation, the path to the true self. Individuation lies at the core of Carl Jung's analytical psychology. It's not merely a theoretical notion, but a profound invitation to become who one truly is at the deepest level. It is the journey through which a person unifies all dimensions of the psyche, both conscious and unconscious, into a genuine and living wholeness. For Jung, our true essence isn't found in the ego or the persona. It resides in the self, the central unifying force of the soul. Individuation is the process of becoming who you are. Carl Jung. Along this inner path, one must observe the persona with awareness. The shadow must be acknowledged, embraced, and integrated, and the ego, so accustomed to control, must learn to yield to the wisdom of the self. This journey is far from linear or comfortable. It demands introspection, stillness, and the courage to face internal contradictions. Techniques like dream analysis, active imagination, and meditative practices serve as powerful allies. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. Individuation, then, is a demanding process of self-responsibility. Change alone is not enough. One must be ready to strip away illusions, break from automatic roles, and confront limiting beliefs. At this point, the example used by Jean-Paul Sartre becomes relevant. The waiter in the cafe, so immersed in his social performance that he no longer discerns where the act ends and the person begins. This existential bad faith represents a form of internal captivity. When the persona is mistaken for the real self, it robs us of our freedom. But individuation allows us to reclaim what was lost along the way, our wholeness. However, in a world obsessed with appearances, a new challenge arises, one that takes form in the digital persona. The digital persona, the modern illusion. In earlier times, the persona was shaped by family, education, or profession. Today, it finds a more prominent stage: social media. Here, we construct edited, polished versions of ourselves, designed to attract attention, approval, and belonging. The digital persona is more curated, more visual, more alluring, and thus more dangerous. The ease of presenting an idealized image distances us even further from our authentic being. Endless comparison, the craving for external validation, and the fear of not fitting in lead to cycles of anxiety and disconnection. The more we feed this virtual persona, the emptier we begin to feel inside. Sia. Lewis warned of this danger in the Screwtape Letters through the voice of the senior demon advising his apprentice. The safest road to hell is the gradual one, the gentle slope, soft underfoot, without sudden turnings, without milestones, without signposts. Clive Staples Lewis. This inner disconnection doesn't appear overnight. It is built slowly, one filter at a time, one role per post. And before long, we find ourselves living a life that doesn't reflect who we truly are. Yet hope remains. Everything begins with a single spark: awareness. The first step, awareness. No real transformation can begin without awareness. Before we can cast off the persona or confront the shadow, we must first acknowledge them. It starts with seeing clearly the roles we have adopted, recognizing that we wear masks and that, at times, they served a purpose. The issue isn't in having worn them, but in mistaking them for our entire identity. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Carl Jung. To become requires seeing, and to see clearly is the first act of bravery. It's not about discarding the persona altogether, but about using it with intentionality, mindfulness, and purpose. True freedom doesn't lie in living mask-free, but in knowing when to wear the mask and when it's time to remove it. With the awakening of awareness, the individuation journey can finally begin. It is on this path, walked with honesty and integrity, that we draw nearer to our essence. It's time to look beyond the mask, an authentic life. To live beyond the mask is to live with sincerity, not for others, but for oneself. There is no true fulfillment while we remain chained to appearances, while we fear being seen as we really are. Individuation calls us to wholeness, not to flawlessness. Nothing has a stronger psychological effect on one's environment, and especially on one's children, than the unlived life of the parent. Carl Jung. That unlived life always hides behind the persona. Discovering the self is the greatest gift we can offer to ourselves. And perhaps it's the only real path to genuine freedom. If this message stirred something within you, maybe it's time to stop living from behind the mask. Allow yourself to begin this path of self-discovery, of reconciling with your truth, of returning to your real identity. Here, we seek more than appearances. We seek essence, freedom, and awareness. Join our community of faith and transformation. Like this video and subscribe to stay connected to future inspirational messages. Your true self is waiting to be found.